Alright, so we got something a little bit different today. The first thing I am going to say before we get into it is that this is sort of an experimental type of video, so I'm only going to continue this if a lot of people show interest and it's something that people actually want to see. With that out of the way, yeah, let's get into it. So I'm going to be checking this guy's ID. It was just a random ID that was in one of the more recent comments. So this is his hangar. I already took a look at it and kind of have an idea of what I'm going to say here. So the idea for this video is to basically suggest the best course of action to make this hangar as good as possible. I think this one's better than this one, so I'm going to go with this one. To make this hangar as good as possible given a specific A-coin budget. And the A-coin budget that we're going to use is going to be equal to the SP. So in this case, we're going to assume that this guy has a 5,000 A-coin budget, and we're going to try to make sure that we can get this hangar looking as good as possible with 5,000 A-coins or less. So the first thing I do want to point out, multiple rare pilots, that's usually not a good idea. In terms of the mechs and weapons, you have some pretty good mechs, obviously Eclipse, some pretty good weapons. Graviton, even Disruptors, Disc Launcher works really well at this SP. Ember Gun, obviously. So a lot of this is pretty solid. You have a good Brawler Scout here. That's usually a staple of any good hangar, is to have a solid Brawler Scout. It's usually like one of your best builds, particularly for free-for-all. You have a good damage dealer here as well. This is kind of like a pseudo-brawler specialist, where, you know, a specialist being something that's like a little bit niched. It's typically fine to have one or possibly two, and it can be really, really good depending on the mode and map that you're playing. But yeah, specialists tend to be a little bit niched. This is just a damage dealer. Its job is to do a heavy amount of damage. The same thing with the brawler, but the difference between a brawler and a damage dealer is that the brawler typically has more firepower, but also requires to get, you know, closer to the enemies, as well as being able to, you know, fight multiple enemies relatively effectively. This is not a damage dealer. Normally Orion is. That's what Orion's like stupidly good at. But with the Disruptor, it's more of a pseudo damage dealer specialist, where the Disruptors are kind of niched. You're only gonna be able to take out one guy at a time because you only get one shot before you have to reload, and Disruptor does not necessarily one-shot a lot of things. Even if they're marked, I would say most things don't die to a single Disruptor shot, and especially if they have mods, right? You have some decent mods on here, I noticed, which is very nice. But yeah, any enemy with just like a basic level perimeter multi-layer, Disruptors are not going to do very well against it. Even if you have it on Orion, the shield pierces, it's not going to do that much. And then here you have somewhat of a pseudo-brawler, pseudo-tank. It's not particularly good at holding positions. It's not particularly good at dealing large amounts of damage. But it does have good weapon reach, and it also has, you know, a pretty quick reload time, reasonable mag size. So it's somewhat of a brawler. Again, at this SP, Disc Launcher does pretty darn well. Somewhat of a brawler, somewhat of a tank, somewhat of a specialist, but it doesn't really do any of those things specifically well. My main recommendation is to get Aegis. Aegis will be like 3750 A-coins. Yeah, 3750. And that can replace the Sentinel, probably. Or it could replace the Guardian if you wanted to, it doesn't really matter. You keep the Disc Launcher on it, and it wouldn't necessarily make it a better brawler or a better specialist, but it would make it a better tank, a significantly better tank. And just being able to stand your ground for longer also means that you can get out more damage with your Disc Launcher. So just all in all, it's just better than Sentinel in basically every way. What I would do after that is I would put the missile rack from here onto the Orion. Once again, I don't think Disruptor Orion's a particularly great choice. And that would turn this Orion build into a super heavy damage dealer. You do have some really good Disruptor implants, and you only, well, at least that you have equipped, you only have a single missile rack damage. So it would be slightly inconvenient. And you might only get one missile rack salvo out per ability usage, but you're much, much more likely to kill something in a double missile rack salvo than you are in a 1 to 2 shots even of Disruptor. Now if you don't want to go for the damage dealer Orion, then I would go for the full specialist Orion and put the disc launchers on it. That way you get somewhat of the benefit of Disruptor, being that, you know, it has some form of radius and it's able to deal with enemies that are not necessarily out in the open. But also it has the benefit of a larger mag size and pretty similar reload time. The homing of Disc Launcher paired with the homing of the Orion Mark, pretty decent build. And of course I'd probably just like slap the last Disruptor onto Guardian regardless of what you do with Orion. Just because the Disruptor 12 is pretty high level, you have really good Disruptor implants for another thing, and you know, lastly, Guardian is more of a specialist than a brawler anyway. So yeah, I would put Aegis here, Disc Launcher Aegis, Missile Rack Orion, and Disruptor Guardian. Or you could also do Disruptor Guardian, Disc Launcher Orion, and Missile Rack Aegis, which might be the preferable way to go, to be honest. And all of that's just with the purchase of Aegis. After that, I would probably just get an epic pilot, and I would get it for close quarters. Close quarters weapons will pretty much always be relevant no matter what, because they're the ones that deal the most amount of damage and have the quickest reload times, no matter how the game changes. With the existence of dash mechs and teleport mechs especially, there will pretty much always be some demand for close quarters weapons, so it's incredibly, incredibly unlikely that you ever decide that you don't want to run a close quarters build. So when people go for, when people go for higher tier pilots, I always recommend they go for the close quarters first. And then that's about it. That's about 5,000 A-coins. But yeah. Now maybe you're saving up your A-coins for the sake of getting Surge. You already have Eclipse, obviously. So it very well could be that you're trying to get Surge to replace, I don't know, possibly Guardian. In which case, that's fair too, but I think in either case you should get an Aegis to replace this anyway. Aegis is the best tank for holding positions, and also just one of the best tanks in general, so I always recommend people get it. But yeah, otherwise that'll be it. Very solid Hangar all around. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I think it would be really nice, at least I would enjoy it, if there were some way for me to review people's hangars more frequently, but also I don't really like being bothered to stream for 3 hours and just do nothing but hangar reviews. I think it's boring. But you know, like, videos like this are fine. And also I like the idea of an A-coin budget for each hangar based on the SP. Well, maybe I'll change that number slightly and have like a multiplier to it so that it's slightly more, slightly less than what your SP is, but generally matching the SP seems about fair. Credit to Nihilus for that idea, by the way. And yeah, if this is something you want to see more of, then just let me know. If we can get this video to 200 likes, then I will make another one. Otherwise, that will be it for me. Appreciate y'all. Take care.